Tonight on CTV News, the safety of sex workers is back in the spotlight. We've got the details. Some better news for motorists travelling across the city, and there's more help for those still struggling with the ongoing effects of the earthquakes.
Broadcasting across Canterbury, from the CTV studio, this is First at 5.
Good evening. Christchurch police are appealing for witnesses following a hit and run of a woman in Hamner Springs. The 63-year-old had to be treated for a compound fracture to one of her wrists following the incident on Woodbank Road around 2:30 on Friday. The vehicle is described as a silver or grey ute. Anyone with any information is asked to contact Christchurch police as soon as possible. Canterbury University researchers have released a study on sex workers in Christchurch and the level of violence they experience on the streets following the earthquakes. The research follows a 26 survey of sex workers in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch. Marcus Gibbs with a special report.
Manchester Street on a Friday night. As cars go up and down, several women wave out. They're Christchurch's sex workers, working the streets as they've done so, night after night for weeks, months, and as we found out, some for even decades. It's these women of the night that a University of Canterbury researcher wants to interview. She wants to know how dangerous it is to work on the streets and how the job has changed since the earthquakes.
The issue with victimization in the sex industry is an important problem, and the more we understand about it, the better off we are, I suppose.
The university professor worked with 4 other researchers on her paper. It will soon be published in an economic publication. The research is based on a survey 9 years ago in 2006. Back then, hundreds of sex workers in New Zealand's 3 major cities, Auckland, Christchurch and Wellington, were surveyed. The results paint a picture of how different life was for sex workers in the Garden City then compared to now.
What we found is that Christchurch is actually safer than Auckland when it comes to the street sector. So you might actually find that that's surprising.
Recent press suggests there's more violence on Manchester Street in 2015, with disturbances and brothels really making the headlines. Last year there were several physical and sexual assaults involving street prostitutes.
You don't think, oh shit, it's not going to happen to you. You're always on the guard. You're always on the watch.
You've really got to be on your toes. You've got to, look out for yourself and really listen to your instincts. Yeah, if you don't have good street smarts, you could get in a lot of trouble.
However, in 2006, brothels were considered more dangerous.
What we think is going on is that it's the way the Christchurch street sector has always been quite compact, sort of fairly sort of concentrated in Manchester Street, that is something that makes actually the street sector a lot safer than it would be in a city where it's less compact or more spread out.
The researchers found that alcohol, drug dependency or both more than doubled the risk of violence in the industry in 2006. And last year, while filming current affairs show Street Stories for CTV, I found prostitutes still needed drugs or alcohol to get through a night's work.
Because all my life I've always got drunk, because when I get to work I'm drunk as a skunk.
I've had three tonight, yeah. So, yeah, just a little bit of a numbing and to take the edge off the cold.
Sex workers have never had a risk-free job, and 3 years after the 2003 decriminalisation of prostitution, violence on the streets was still not unheard of. 38% of all the sex workers in Christchurch, Wellington and Auckland had at least one adverse experience relating to sex work during a 12-month period. 23% of all those surveyed had money stolen or clients refusing to pay. 20% had been threatened with violence or received abusive text messages, and 16% had been subject to physical violence, rape, or had been held somewhere against their will. Last year's sex worker Tans told me violence from clients was an expected part of the job.
I actually got raped about 4 months ago and bashed, and I find that wasn't very nice, and I'm just trying to get over it, so I haven't been working that much.
The survey found that despite the legalisation of the work, street workers were unmotivated to move to brothels, as on the street they didn't need to pay a cut of their earnings. These benefits outweighed any perceived risk.
I won't say it's quick and easy, but it can be a quick way to make money. And, when you've got to pay the power and put food on the table for the kids and provide an education for them.
Christchurch sex workers in 2015 face new issues. Roadworks down Manchester Street following the earthquake stopped clients from accessing prostitutes. To counter this, the sex workers moved into the residential end of the street. Residents and prostitutes clashed before the street reopened. Further work is planned for Manchester Street as the street is widened. Again, this could force the sex workers to move out of the city's sex haven.
If the safety has deteriorated in the street sector, then we start to get a bit more understanding of what is actually affecting that safety of street sex workers.
If new research is commissioned, the university also wants to interview the clients of sex workers. That won't be an easy task. Clients enjoy being anonymous and won't want their names or faces publicised.
If we want to understand truly this industry, we need to understand both sides. You know, if you make the client feel like this is anonymous and it's in a safe and secure place, they perhaps might be willing to do that.
The researchers hope another study would help the public understand the issues prostitutes face in 2015. Marcus Gibbs, CTV News.
Commuters are rejoicing following the completion finally of roadworks on the corner of Hagley and Morehouse Ave. It marks the end of the first stage of the Christchurch City Council and the SERA program, ironically called Accessible City.
You should have a smoother journey at the intersection of Hagley Park and Morehouse Avenue. Whether you're on your bike or driving, this complex intersection has now been simplified to make it safer for all. Christchurch City Councillor Phil Clearwater says it's one step, but a big step. Cyclists can now cross into the Hagley Park shed path on their own light, and other traffic has to stop for them. Other network changes are currently underway, such as turning Chum Street into the new one-way east route into the city. Other projects were approved last week to go out to the public for consultation. The Christchurch Central Development Unit, Acting Director Baden Hewitt, says the completion of this first project shows a clear commitment to delivering what the people of Christchurch want. The green light phasing is now more efficient, which should decrease travel times for motorists. There should be a flow-on effect for when the traffic reaches Hospital Corner as well. The aim of the An Accessible City Plan is to design a network that is not only safe, but offers plenty of choice in how people access and move about the new central city. But this plan needs to be adaptable as travel habits change in the future.
It's the only national charity that supports those affected by traumatic disasters. And to keep up with demand, today Victim Support got a leg up from another charitable organisation.
They're there to back the police up every time there is emotional trauma caused by crime. And there has been considerably more need for victim support services since the Christchurch earthquakes. But as this is the case with many not-for-profit organisations after the disaster, more money is needed to keep up with this demand. But money is often hard to come by, and no longer can many of them rely on the government for funding. Today, the St Lazarus Charitable Trust gifted Victim Support the first of 3 $10,000 grants to keep up its work for the people of Canterbury who are contending with the emotional and physical after effects of the quakes. Victim Support estimates it has helped thousands of Cantabrians to avoid long-term depressive illnesses, and its early intervention prevents chronic and extreme reactions in sufferers. And with up to 10% of the population experiencing long-term psychological health deterioration after the Christchurch quakes, the money will certainly be needed.
Well, still to come here on CTV News, an extraordinary story. Do we need to sell our city's assets to pay for the council's debt? Fractions already are starting to show now inside the council. And Councillor Andrew Turner will join me next on the programme. When you need to know what's happening in your region of Canterbury, join me, Chris Lynch, for CTV News First at 5, weeknights from 5, right here on your local channel, CTV.
Computer not working? Replace or repair? DIY or get a technician? Looking for parts? Thinking of upgrading? Need accessories? You've got questions, we've got answers. Global PC.
The preparation, the devotion, the fearlessness, the intensity. Runway model management. First impressions are everything.
made-to-measure interiors. Made with care, made for you.
Join Graham Sinclair and the team at Gone Fishing as they bring you great stories, fishing tips and beautiful scenery. Gone Fishing, Friday night at 8:30, right here on CTV.
Welcome back to CTV News. Well, is it too good to be true? A bunch of councillors say we don't need to sell anything, we don't need to sell off our assets. This can be done in other ways. It is our lead story tonight, and joining us in the studio is from the People's Choice, Andrew Turner. Good to have you here. So you released a plan essentially saying you don't need to sell your assets, we can reduce our debt quite phenomenally. Talk us through the need to do this now. Why now? Why not before, when the consultations was happening around the table with the other councillors?
Well, this is a piece of work that's taken some time to put together. It's also the whole thing has been an iterative process, I guess, as well. You know, there have been 2 council resolutions around the sale of assets, one in December, one more recently, and we're now getting to a point where, of course, the draft long-term plan is out for consultation, and it's important that all options are put on the table so that people do have access to the information that they need to make good quality submissions and to be able to be intelligently involved in the process.
So let's talk about the options that the People's Choice have raised today. What are the fundamental main options that you think can save this city a lot of money?
So at a high level, we've got a consultation document which has been put out by the council, which largely has a capital programme which is taken as read. It's there, and that's the basis of the plan. And the question really is, how are we going to pay for the work that needs to be done? We've taken a different view of this. We're actually looking at the size of the shopping list and saying, is there something we can do to actually reduce the size of the shopping list so that the funding requirement can also be reduced? So the debate so far has really been framed as, do we sell assets or do we raise rates? We're adding a different component to that debate to a far greater degree than it's been put out so far, which is, do we actually defer some of these capital projects? In fact, are there some that we don't do at all, so that we reduce the need for such a high level of funding?
I've gone through the shopping list, so to speak. Give us some of the main items, or give us some of the main expenditure you think we can cut, that we can get rid of, the nice to haves but the things we don't need at the moment. And we'll talk about the stadium later on, but I want to get to some of the other issues though. What else is in that shopping list you believe the council hasn't taken a harder look at?
All right, well, there are all manner of things that we need to be looking at there. Council's ability to deliver the projects that it's got on budget within the timeframes is certainly one area that we want to look at. There are the central city roading projects in the Accessible Cities Plan that you were talking about in your previous news item. We need to look at maybe reprioritising some of those, and perhaps reprioritising some of those against the need for some more work to be done more quickly in the suburbs. So this is really around prioritising items within budget, and it may be that things get pushed out. There are some things that don't get done at all, and of course for every capital expenditure item that gets deferred, then the cost of borrowing to fund that item is also pushed out or is reduced, and if there's an operational expense, once the capital asset is completed, that operating expense is also pushed out. So there are several effects to each of these actions.
Let's talk about one example that Jana Johansson told me a few months ago now that he was concerned about, and that was the upgrading of Kilmore Street. He referred to that, I think, on record now as sort of the gold plating of the central city. What does he mean by that? And obviously that's the same concerns that you have.
That's right. I mean, if we look at an accessible city, there are some projects in there, I'm sure, that tie in with the Accessible Cities Phase 1, which is rolling out at the moment. There are some projects in there which relate to cycleways and walking and road safety and all manner of things that we would all support. But there are projects in there
that are vital and not so vital.
Exactly.
And I think you're right to say that, because when I looked at your plan, there's one thing that I noticed there. We have some so-called Dutch expert that comes out and says, no, forget the cycleways, you need this and that and that, and all of a sudden that increases the costs phenomenally. I mean, it's all very well to get the experts from overseas to tell us what we should and shouldn't have, but in a city that's fundamentally broke, that's essentially part of the issue you're getting at, isn't it? That it's all very well to have the experts coming here and telling us we need the gold-plated cycleways, but unless we've got the cash that goes with it, we're dreaming.
Yeah, I mean, great to be taking advice, but everything that we're doing needs to be affordable. And as I said earlier, the size of the shopping list needs to be dictated by the size of the budget, not the other way round.
Now, there's been a lot of conjecture, a lot of contentious issues regarding this Blimmin Stadium. Now, my understanding was it has already been deferred way out to 2025. So what are the people's choice on about then?
So the stadium is on budget at the moment. It's in the long-term plan. I've fronted 4 of the council's long-term plan public meetings in the last few weeks, and one of the things that's come up consistently at each of those meetings, and I understand at other meetings right the way across the city, is this question about the stadium, which has been live for some time. I mean, I remember at the annual plan last year hearing a lot about the stadium and its need for deferral and so on.
Should we dump it then completely?
It needs to be pushed out further. It doesn't need to be done so soon. So this is one that we would need to defer. There are other considerations
because despite the fact it has been deferred to 2025, it is still part of the plan, isn't it? So this is still, the costs are still there, no matter whether you defer it to 2080.
Yeah, but again, with those considerations around borrowing requirements and so on.
We've got to go. Andrew Turner, thanks for coming to CTV News. And of course, Andrew Turner will be returning to CTV's Lynch program next week. We will have more time to flesh out those important issues. And what you do need to know is public consultation on the council's long-term plan ends in just over a week. Andrew Turner, as I say, will be back on Lynched next Monday. Well, still to come here on CTV News, the weekend sports update and your region's weather. Hi, I'm Chris Lynch. Join me every Monday at 8:30 on CTV as we discuss the issues affecting you, your family and everything to do with Canterbury. That's CTV 8:30 right here.
Computer not working? Replace or repair? DIY or get a technician? Looking for parts? Thinking of upgrading? Need accessories? You've got questions, we've got answers. Global PC.
The preparation, the devotion, the fearlessness, the intensity. Runway model management. First impressions are everything.
Made to measure interiors, made with care, made for you.
Join Graham Sinclair and the team at Gone Fishing as they bring you great stories, fishing tips and beautiful scenery. Gone Fishing, Friday night at 8:30, right here on CTV.
And welcome back to CTV News. Now here's Gordon with a roundup of the weekend sport.
It wasn't a Friday night to remember for red and black fans as the lacklustre Crusaders side went down to rivals the Chiefs at AMI Stadium. The Cantabs couldn't have asked for a more opportunistic start to the match, with Sam Cane sent to the bin in the 6th minute. The side were unable to create a lead though, as the usually ruthless Crusaders elected for shots at goal rather than their normal all-out attack tactics with the man advantage. With the Crusaders trailing 13 points to 6 just before half-time, the Chiefs pounced on a loose ball to score on the half-time hooter in almost a repeat of what happened a week earlier against the Highlanders. The second half was much of the same, with the side failing to find any rhythm with ball in hand, while Dan Carter continued his poor night with the boot. The Chiefs were ruthless with their possession, showing the flair they have become renowned for in recent years as they finished off the home side in the 72nd minute with a beautifully worked move from a failed Crusaders clearance. The final score there was the Chiefs 26, the Crusaders 9. The Canterbury Rams continued their bright start to this year's National Basketball League with the most dramatic of wins at Cal Stadium on Saturday night. Taking on the Manawatu Jets, the Rams controlled the game early with American import Mikal Gladness dominating in the paint, producing his best performance to date, which included 14 rebounds, 6 blocks along with 12 points. Leading 48-43 at half-time, the Rams struggled offensively in the third quarter, going more than 5 minutes without a bucket as the Jets took the lead into the game's final quarter. With both teams struggling to find points in the final quarter, the Rams found themselves down by 1 in the final minute. American import Kyle Costin was fouled going to the rim, giving himself the chance to put the Rams in front. After missing his first free throw attempt, Costin levelled the score at 76 all with less than 20 seconds remaining. Manawatu then inbounded the ball looking to kill time to leave themselves with the last shot in the match. Enter Rams forward Marcus Whippy, who for the second time of the night stole the ball from Jets point guard as the Rams broke on the break, with Whippy breaking Manawatu hearts as he laid the ball in on the final buzzer, sending Cal Stadium into pandemonium. And finally tonight, the ANZ Netball Championship had their Trans-Tasman rivalry weekend, which sees the 5 New Zealand franchises do battle with one of the 5 Australian franchises. The Australian sides took all 4 games over the weekend, with the Kiwis' last chance of a win laying in the hands of the mainland Tactics tonight. After their horror display against the Steel a fortnight ago, the Tactics restored some pride a week ago against the Fever in Blenheim. The side are now looking to put together a polished offensive performance against the Adelaide Thunderbirds.
The criticism was that there was no structure by the attackers. Man, we're going to have so much structure, it's going to be a joke.
Last week's game saw the Tactics create enough turnovers to win the game. However, the issue for the side has been converting those turnovers into goals at the shooting end.
Our turnover conversion has been, around about the 50-60%. Now, last week it was way down, and we're not happy about that. And you'll hear it when we play counting. And so what we do is the team collectively, as they take an intercept, we know it's either the first or second ball that will go astray. And that's like a given for most teams. So by counting, then the girls really keep the focus right through to the end.
Goal attack Bailey Mears is one tactic who put in one of her better performances last week, and after developing her game in Auckland, the new tactic is embracing her fresh start in Christchurch.
I love it. It's definitely a different environment. Obviously lots of changes in the team, so I'm really enjoying it so far. It's making me you get pretty steady when you're somewhere for 5 years and obviously not getting that much court time, so it's definitely a nice change.
Mears is also enjoying life working under coach Sue Hawkins.
She's amazing. Obviously I've got Vicky Wilson as well in the Ferns, so definitely having that Aussie approach has definitely made me think differently about a few things, so it's just adding a lot more to my game.
Tonight's opposition, the Thunderbirds, possess a strong threat in the shooting circle, and coach Sue Hawkins knows her defensive pairing will need to be on their game.
I think you've got to, look at what's happening in that goal attack position from Bell. I think Demelza really needs to step up. Her game has been, I think, a little bit behind the 8 ball, and I think she has really addressed that, and she's starting to get back to the Demelza I knew, and she feels far more comfortable. So I think you'll see an injection of her energy a bit more Jess on Borrego. I think that's probably highly likely. But we've got, good players, Louise Thayer and Zoe Walker, itching to get out there, and when they get out there, they do a good job.
Tonight's match gets underway at 7:40 from Horncastle Arena. You're up to date with the latest in local sport. I'm Gordon Findlater for CTV Sport.
Thanks, Gordon. Now time for the region's weather.
Kia ora everybody. Let's take a look at today's temperatures. First up, Timaru, Temuka and Geraldine all had a high of 19 degrees today. Methven, Ashburton and Rakaya also on 19 degrees. Looking now at Darfield, a high of 19. Leeston and Rolleston slightly higher on 20 degrees. Lincoln and Christchurch both had a high of 20 degrees today. And over in Akaroa, slightly warmer with a high of 21. Out in North Canterbury, Rangiora, Kaipoi and Amberley all had a high of 20. Culverden, Hanmer Springs and Cheviot on 21 degrees. And up further along the east coast in Kaikoura, also a high of 21. Let's take a look at the weather for Tuesday. Timaru, any early showers will clear but remaining cloudy and cool with northeasterly winds developing. Tonight's low 10 degrees and tomorrow's high 14.
Bluebirds fly
Ashburton, damp to start with but dry later with cloudy skies and cool northeasterly breezes. Tonight's low 10, tomorrow's high 14 degrees.
Someday wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind.
In the Garden City, dull and damp for your Tuesday with showers most of the day. More persistent rain during the evening. Northeasterly winds throughout the day. Tonight's low 10 degrees and tomorrow's high 14.
Find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow.
Cloudy and cool in Kaikoura too, with light showers and drizzle patches most of the day. Light winds tending northeasterly. Tonight's low 10 degrees and tomorrow's high 14 degrees. And in other areas around the region, Temuka and Geraldine cloudy with a high of 14. Methven and Rakaya morning rain and cloudy, a high of 14. Darfield, Leeston and Rolleston, cloudy day and of course that morning rain for you as well with a high of 14. Lincoln with a high of 14 and same for you over in Akaroa with that morning rain and cloud, a high of 14. Rangiora, Kaipoi and Amberley, morning rain for you also and that cloud will be about most of the day, a high of 14 degrees. Culverden and Hanmer Springs and Cheviot, morning rain for you too and of course that cloud will be sticking around, a high of 14 degrees for your Tuesday. Looking ahead for Canterbury, mostly cloudy and cool on Wednesday with moderate northerlies, but some sunny periods developing later in the day, becoming fine on Thursday. Friday, sunny periods and high cloud, humid with moderate to fresh breezy northeast winds. Mild on Saturday with sunny periods at first, but high cloud increasing and lowering during the day with fresh northerly winds. Cloudy on Sunday with some rain for a time and fresh northerly winds decreasing. And that is your region's weather for Monday. Have a great evening.
And that is CTV News for Monday. You stay safe. We'll catch you back for lunch at 8:30 right here on CTV.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.